Going live. Hey everyone. Had some thoughts and wanted to put them out there. Hey, can everyone hear me? Can I be heard loud and clear? Just want to make sure my voice is coming through. Thanks for checking me out. Thank you. Is my voice clear? Hey everyone. All right, so yes, all right, thanks. Two hearts. Hey, two hearts. How are you? Thanks for checking in with me, coming in here. Got a little rust in my voice. So, so I did a show yesterday. And my show, the show was about, it focused on the Black community. And the show was about whether or not Black Americans give up. And when I did the show and I had a lot of thoughts about the kinds of the conversation we had. And the conversation, man, we stripped down in layers. And what you kind of find out is that there are a whole lot of things that the Black community isn't talking about. And protesting, riots, I heard in Chicago last night about midnight that they just looted a whole bunch of upscale stores, Apple computer. They just busted the windows, took stuff out. And I mean, nothing's resolved with that. You still won't have any power. Economic power, you won't have anything. Those clothes last for a finite time. So do the computers. And so I was thinking about how that there are patterns. Hey, what's going on? Thanks, Alpha. We got Alpha C6. Thanks for joining me. Thanks. I was thinking about how everything in life has patterns, and a lot of people miss out on the patterns that are right in front of them. And a lot of times people have in the palm of their hands, they have the opportunity, the very opportunities that they want. And somehow it slips out. They sabotage whatever they do to kill it off. And sometimes they have everything it takes to have it. So, I was thinking this title, I was trying to come up with a good title for this show, for this live talk. And I want to walk you through, I want to make a case for why I say most men will never have power with women, even though they may have what you would call their own superpower and being able to navigate through life and deal with relationships. They have the capacity to actually see the patterns. What I think we have all this other stuff, and maybe people don't always know how to use the power that they have. So I want to talk about how I think guys who are, even women who are nerds, this is a perfect show for people who are nerds, they geeks, they have high intelligence. This will have a lot of value for people like that. And then there are people who are, they may be guys who are players, They're smart. There are people who are great book smart, but there are people who are nerds, they're mathematicians, they're physicists, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're nerds, and they're not good with women, except they have this capacity that gives them the power and they don't really know how to use it. So they kind of squander it and miss out. So this is all coming out of doing a show on does the Black community quit? And I was thinking, man, this is beyond the Black community. This is just people. And I'm listening to guys doing shows about how they say they marry women and they change. And it's like you're hearing these guys talking about being kind of powerless with women. So I really want to put the responsibility in the hands of men right now. And there's some for women. There's something for women to get out of this, but it's really that guys have more power than they realize and just don't always know how to leverage that power. So like this video, let's get some likes here. Share it. If you know someone who's a nerd, a geek, high intelligence, someone who has high aspirations, share this. Get them, pull them into this, because they'll want to hear this. And I want to make a case for this, for what I'm going to say. So I'm going to show how nerds and geeks are more powerful than they realize. And the regular guy who doesn't consider himself to be a nerd or a geek, a lot of you guys have more nerd and geek in you than you actually know. Oh, that's interesting. So it paused. Okay. So you have more in you. And unfortunately, we live in a society where some people are just completely condemned for being really smart. I'm going to address that too. So how can men have more power? Not just with women, but this is beyond women, but I'll make it relevant to relationships, so it's more practical for people. And for all the ladies who really are interested in an intelligent guy, whether he's a nerd, a geek, or he's just a high intelligence guy with a lot of ambition, you're going to get a lot out of this. And so a lot of men who claim to be players, a lot of guys who are players, it doesn't mean they have power with women. I know a lot of guys think that, and maybe you wish you could be a player, except a lot of guys who are players and they try and they want to get with high quality women, actually the women end up pumping and dumping them. And they don't even realize it. A lot of players cannot keep high quality women, the kind of valuable women that a lot of guys want. Players don't keep them. So when I go through this, it's going to sound like I'm trying to be a really smart guy, and ultimately I want men to understand the power they have. So why are men not champions? If I give you like the cut to the chase, the answer is a lot of guys just don't know how to recognize patterns. And that was part of what the problem was with the Black community, is that there are patterns that are recognizable. They keep repeating over and over again. And no one seems to understand why these patterns keep happening over and over again. So when they do IQ tests, they look for reading comprehension, the ability to reason, and there's a huge emphasis on recognizable patterns. The higher your ability to recognize patterns, the higher your intelligence is generally what happens. People who have high intelligence are able to connect things that most people cannot. And if you look at computers are just a simulation of the human brain and being able to recognize patterns through algorithms. And they actually created computers to do that. So when they created IQ tests back in started in 1905, 1906, it was looking for recognizable patterns. The computer didn't come around until 1936. They call it the Turing machine. So So why is pattern recognition, and they call it for intelligence, pattern recognition? So why is it important in conversation? People with high pattern recognition, like I said, they're seen as high intelligence. People with lower pattern recognition, they generally don't see the pattern. And if you look at a woman who keeps getting with a guy who beats her, or abuses her, gets drunk and beats her, in a lot of cases, her ability to recognize the pattern in the guy, she can't see it. So she ends up with the same guy, just like the woman who ends up with the same guy who cheats, or the guy who ends up with the gold digger, or the woman who cheats. It's that recognizable pattern that people are missing, even though it's right in front of them, because everyone tells you who they are if you just listen, right? So the one challenge is if a woman has had abuse, physical, mental, or sexual abuse while she was a child, there's a good chance she's going to keep going to men who abuse her, because she doesn't think she deserves a quality guy, the guy who won't. In fact, if she meets a guy who doesn't abuse her, she thinks he's going to leave as soon as he finds out that she screwed up. So if she can't recognize that pattern in herself, she's going to keep sabotaging her relationships by choosing the wrong guy. And in a good guy who doesn't recognize that, he'll get stuck with her and can't understand why he's going through all these roller coasters. So guys who are really intelligent can pick up these patterns in a really short time period. And so a lot of you guys who are nerds, you're geeks, you have this ability to recognize patterns, but the problem is you get really awkward and don't know what to do with that. And because we live in a politically correct society, even though you're the nerd and the geek, and let's say you meet a woman who's extremely beautiful and your intelligence towers hers, and you see in a very short time period that she's never going to be able to hold your interest aside from her looks, and she can't even hold a conversation with you. You can't tell her, hey, I find you attractive, I want to have sex with you, but I think you're really dumb, and I'm still sexually attracted. We don't live in a society that actually allows that. So it becomes a dilemma. So the nerd becomes awkward, and now the woman says, hey, that guy doesn't have confidence, but it's really a whole lot more going on to that. And a lot of these guys who are really intelligent are getting labeled as lacking confidence, except if you see that same guy with a beautiful woman who has high intelligence, whether she's a nerd, a geek, math, science, whatever it is. Hell, I've met some nerdy women who were into dance. They were dancers, in Broadway for a living. When that guy meets her, all of a sudden it clicks and he can speak to her. Her beauty doesn't become some impediment. He can actually express himself. And that's where a lot of guys get kind of tongue-tied with women, because you don't know how to use your own power. So you get so stuck on the looks. You get stuck on the looks instead of leveraging what you actually have. And when you find out that she's just not a match for you, I mean, you could just walk away, right? And say, hey, I don't think we'll ever get along. You could say, I thought this would be different when I approached you. I thought you'd be more open-minded. Or you could say, hey, look, I have a reputation for being awkward. I'm not awkward with people at all. It's just the things that I think about and that interest me don't interest a lot of people, and I don't know if they would interest you. Now, if she opens the door and say, well, what are you interested in? You can tell her, I'm interested in quantum physics. I'm interested in human behavior. I'm interested in international travel, whatever those things. If she takes that, you've got a door that's open. But if she doesn't, she's just confirming the pattern that you already saw in advance, and you just couldn't say it. But there are ways to manage that. So, and a lot of you guys recognize these patterns so fast. You recognize patterns. There are men who recognize patterns so quickly, and you don't trust yourself. People have told you you're awkward and not smart. And this is not even just about whether a guy is a nerd or not. I think men get condemned for so much. But if you think about it this way, guys, you are inviting a woman into your life. She's not inviting you into her life. It's up to you to approach her. It's up to you to engage and start the conversation. It's up to you to pay for dinner. If you get married, and she's traditional, there are all these responsibilities that you have, and she's not sharing any of that. Not the approach, not the initiating sex. There's so many things that you are on. If men can actually take that in and understand, it's you who's inviting the woman into your life, and you actually have the right to choose who you let into your life. And a lot of guys, you think about you're lucky and a woman is the prize, when it's actually if you're in a relationship with a woman, she's in a world representing you because you invited her into your life. So it's your life that's making this whole relationship happen. So the fact that you can recognize these patterns as to whether or not a woman has the intellectual prowess to actually support the world you're inviting her into. See, that's what you have to get. You meet a woman, you're inviting her into your world. It's not you going into her world so that you feel lucky and she's a prize. She needs to come into your world and be a match for that. And a lot of men can see when a woman is not a match. Just like women know they're going to have sex with a guy, but they'll also know a woman is doing the same thing. She'll recognize if she has high intelligence, she'll recognize a guy as just a player. This is going to be sex, nothing more. And that's it. And sometimes the player starts to like that woman because she actually has something to offer. Except when she finds out the player has nothing more to offer than smooth lines to make her feel good, he ends up getting pumped and dumped because his service offerings are very shallow. So he really doesn't qualify. So even guys end up playing themselves. So, guys, you are not lucky to get with a woman. She is not the prize. She represents you in a relationship, in a marriage, in anything. So when you recognize that what she offers is not a match for the world you've created, for the life you've created, especially if you're what's considered a high value man, you have a strong career, you have high intelligence, you're able to recognize patterns and see things. You see things connect and start to happen even before they happen. That's what allows you to recognize patterns in a woman and know she's not qualified. It's just people keep telling you should be lucky to have her. You're awkward, and that conversation needs to just die. Men are powerful. You create the world for the woman to come into. And it's your responsibility to recognize whether the patterns that she exudes or displays are a match for the world that you want to create. And so a lot of people may think, well, so what? Who cares? But there's a whole super upper class that's been developing in our society since the 1960s. And these are people who they went to the Ivy League schools. Uh, they have high intelligence. They come from money. They may be attractive, and they're marrying one another, and they're making children who are high intelligence, born into money, and they're going into all kinds of decision-making positions like CEOs and senators and governors, and running nonprofit organizations. And they recognize patterns, and they are creating their own world, and a lot of people just don't fit into that. So if you're thinking about competing in this world and creating children who will also be happy and be able to compete in this world, as a man, you need to think about the woman that you're inviting into your life. So you're looking at these patterns, is all she's bringing is a pretty face, a nice body, and you're assuming the vagina comes with it. If that's it, you have to think about, how will she enrich your life aside from sex? Does she have social skills? Can she work a room? Is she a great networker? Now, usually the women who are the best networkers generally are very intelligent, and they recognize patterns. They can match up between what their husband does. Even if she's a stay-at-home mom, even if she works, she can match up what her husband does and know how to plug her husband into a world that will give him new clients, investors, vendors with preferential treatment. If you're going to be with someone, make sure she fits into your world. And you don't have to feel uncomfortable as a man, because you are discerning these women. So being a nerd, being a geek, hey man, there's power in that. And your ability for pattern recognition is kind of your superpower that I think a lot of people overlook. So part of what I'm getting at is I've been watching these videos where you hear about men who marry women and then they change. Women don't change, just like men don't change. All those patterns that you later see in life, in your relationship, they were there. You just didn't trust yourself. So one way to stop from inviting deceitful women into your life is, think about it this way. You're inviting her into your life. You have the right to interview her before you present this invitation. And there are lots of women who will, if they like you, especially if you have access to resources, they're going to say they have the same values as you. They're going to say they have the same mindset, and they love your mindset because they think you're compatible and you're just like them. Hell, it's easy. Women know how to do this nurturing. I'm going to make you feel good and feel comfortable with me, but that doesn't mean she's compatible with you. She just may know how to snag the right guy. And so you get caught up, you marry her, no prenuptial agreement. And what do you have? You have a woman who's now presenting something very different. And you're like, I didn't sign up for this. But now she's got you, man. Just like she got you. So when you meet a woman, dating at any point you want, you have the right to ask any questions. If she claims she has the same mindset you have, then you ask her, you ask her about the epiphany or the catalyst. What are the things that caused her to start to think this way? If she becomes defensive and doesn't want to answer, most likely she's hiding something. If she's willing to engage you and tell you, even if she says, well, I never thought about it that way, she's going to engage you. These are all patterns to look for that support you in knowing who the right person is to invite in your life. And it puts all the power in your hands as a man. She has to qualify. Now, if she's intelligent, she's doing the same thing with you. Like I said, there's this super upper class, and you better believe these highly intelligent women are looking for highly intelligent men because they're looking to build something with this guy. So your power as a man is your ability, that is that pattern recognition. And you can strip a woman down by understanding patterns and understanding what you're looking for in a woman and whether or not it's there. So for the ladies who want to be with that intelligent man, the same thing. If you're a player who wants to be with this high quality woman, it's incumbent upon you to actually be in action. Even strategically think about how you develop yourself to not just be high value, not a surface high value. You need to have those pattern recognition abilities also. So how do you develop pattern recognition? How do you develop this superpower? It's almost like a brain. People would call a perception muscle. So there are lots of ways to do it, like reading books, right? So you can read any kind of book. This, where is it? This book here by Malcolm Gladwell, very interesting book. He says in his research, he looks at outliers, people who perform above and beyond others. It's not luck. He looked at hockey teams, little league hockey teams, and what he found was the outlier boys in little league, let's say between ages 6 and 8, the ones who became the outliers, it depended on when their birthday fell. So if, let's say, your birthday to make the team has to end in October. Well, if you're a 6-year-old born in January and a 6-year-old born in October, that's almost 1 year. So you're almost a 7-year-old compared to that 6-year-old. The January 6-year-old is almost like a 7-year-old, and you're going to be a little stronger, a little faster. You're going to have better coordination, and the coach is going to spend more time with you. And so his ultimate point was he or she who practices their craft for 10,000 hours becomes a master of it. So people who are really good at recognizing patterns, they've mastered intelligence. They've mastered a lot of things. They've looked at different subject matter and they're able to connect it. So they're not just reading one book about science. International travel helps that because you start looking at different cultures and you look at the culture you were born into and you look at this other culture. You start recognizing the patterns where they're similar and where they're very different, and you start to see more similarities than differences between people. The other thing is spending time with people who are highly intelligent. They're probably going to stretch your mind in the beginning. And if you're really smart, instead of debating and arguing with them, especially when they bring up topics and you know nothing about it, you're just going to squander your time with them. Ask them questions, question after question. If you practice asking questions, you can have mastery around asking questions and do it in a way that's fun, that they want to engage you. It has to be honest. It has to be authentic curiosity, like things you really want to know about. That this ability to recognize patterns is kind of you could say is kind of steeped in some real desire to understand people. That's how you recognize patterns in women. You have to have a real desire to understand who she is and how she became to be. Otherwise, you're going to invite her into your life and she's going to create chaos. Just take a woman who loves the cat and mouse game, right? You chase her, she feels wanted, you get all excited because you're chasing her and you feel like, you're the man and the hunter. Well, the pattern for that is a dysfunctional relationship. Why? Because as soon as you get her and she gets all of her good feeling and excitement by being chased. And once the chase is over, she doesn't get that dopamine high, and neither do you. So what do? You break up. You have an argument, a fight, you break up, and then you chase her again, and she's feeling good because you're after her and you really want her and you're fighting for the relationship. But that's a damn dysfunctional pattern. And any man who's worth anything, especially with intelligence, he's going to see that. And he might, if he really likes the way she looks physically, he may go after her, but that's going to be a pump and dump. That's how women set themselves up for pump and dump. You determining what a man should do to pursue you. And you end up losing the good man because you have this, as a woman, this mindset of what a man is supposed to do. But you don't have the mindset to attract the guy who actually has high intelligence and great pattern recognition, the guy who's actually going to treat you well. So if you want to increase your pattern recognition, reading helps, traveling helps. A huge help is spending time with people who have high intelligence. And you need to know the difference between people who pretend to have it, because people who pretend to have it are good at reading books and they can tell you what the book can say. You take them outside of the book, you take them into topics they don't know. And instead of them knowing what questions to ask, they jump on the argument train and they're trying to argue and debate instead of even understanding the topic. They only use their limited knowledge based on books. But pattern recognition, people who are really intelligent can actually ask questions about things they know nothing about and start to understand the patterns in the topic, and then be able to connect it to other things and be able to have an intelligent conversation about it. So one of the patterns, if you guys don't know, is a woman who's always going to debate and argue with you, even if she tells you she wants to be submissive, but she really doesn't know how. She's got a pattern to fight and argue because there's something going on about her having to be right, and that has nothing to do with you. That's her childhood. So what am I saying, guys? I'm saying that a lot of you guys who are nerds, geeks, you're high intelligence, and you think you're not good with women, you're actually much better than you imagine. And when you can recognize where you jump off as opposed to continuing the conversation or disqualifying her because she's never going to be able to stay in the conversation, there's no reason for you to ever become awkward. Like, walk away with your power because you already know where she stands. But there are things that you can say that can still invite her, and she can save face. You don't have to embarrassingly walk away or say you're just too dumb to have a conversation with. I'm saying men have power. It's your life. You're inviting her. And even for the guy who's the player, even the player can have a place in a high value woman's life. In general terms, you're a player. She's going to figure out that all you have are good lines, sweet little lines, and not much else. You're part of the dysfunction who has to hunt, and you get your whole dopamine rush from chasing. And then there's nothing left, and she's going to get rid of you. However, she could possibly work with you if she's willing to open up her network. Now, most high-value women are not opening their network up to a shallow guy. It just ain't happening. However, if you have if being a player gives you these transferable skills that allows you to work a room and network, and you're willing to network in a way that supports her success, or you can work together, like she has a certain set of knowledge that can help you bridge a gap that maybe you don't. Maybe she knows finance, maybe she knows something that could help you. You could be a player and actually score high value woman, but you've got to be able to leverage those people skills that you have. Otherwise, you're going to get pumped and dumped, and you'll end up with a dysfunctional woman who likes to play cat and mouse, and it'll feel good until it plays out, and you'll be some old dude who can't do that anymore unless you're in chasing 80-year-olds. So ultimately, guys, I'm really saying you've got power. As a man, you are actually in the best position because you are inviting a woman into your world. You are not representing a woman. You are not being invited into her world. She's being invited into your world where the resources exist. You're paying for dates. It is your initiation that makes the relationship work. It is your leadership. It is you. It is you who creates the world, like the bird who creates the nest. And she's got to qualify to get in. And a lot of you really intelligent guys have this capacity to have the woman understanding that she's coming into your life and she's really lucky to have you. And if she doesn't understand that, then she may be that woman who changes up on you, and you're going to say, I don't understand what happened. She didn't change up. She just didn't value what you bring. She may have valued your resources, but she didn't value you as a man because she had no way of valuing. She didn't understand that who you are as a man, the level of intelligence, the ability to recognize patterns and opportunities, the ability to see where things could derail or fall apart. You could see that before it happened. Like, she didn't know how to value that. So she actually ended up squandering you. And you married her anyway. And then you say she changed. No, she didn't. Use your superpower, guys. That's what I'm saying. And you'll have way more power with women. Right from hello. And when you recognize that she's not qualified to be in your world, just be okay with that. Hell, you may have dodged the bullet. Imagine you chase one of those cat and mouse women, and you end up with this dysfunctional, beautiful woman, and really you just wanted to have sex with her. Like, but you know, we have a hookup culture, so sometimes that's allowed. So anyway, if you want to see that conversation that we had about the recognizable patterns that Black America is missing, I mean, there's a lot of value in that conversation. We really stripped that down. I put that in Patreon. So join me. Come over to Patreon. Become one of the tier members. Support me in Patreon. I'm looking to bring a lot more value to people. Unfortunately, most men don't have unfortunately, most men don't have a purpose and cannot filter lays from wife-worthy women. Yeah, I mean, no question, right? So, what for the guys who do not have, like, so they're not committed to anything, right? So they are just kind of existing. And so you have nothing to invite a world into. And there are a lot of guys like that. And listen, not everyone needs to be a CEO. You know, a lot of these, I don't care if it's Henry Ford or Elon Musk or the guy who's built a great, you know, $500 million company. They have all hired really smart people who have an expertise in finance, in IT, in a specific technology. It could be science. And because those guys have that expertise, it's like I was talking about this book, they have a lot of hours in practice and they've mastered a craft. And their purpose really could just revolve around that expertise. They haven't figured out how to get beyond that, except for the conversation that we all inherit, which is, you know, you grow up, you go to school, you're born, you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you retire, and you die. That's kind of the pattern that people believe is all there is in life. A lot of people just live that life. You know, hobbies are very helpful, right? Because it gives you some other way to express. A hobby is a great way to express who you are. But maybe the thing that I didn't say is a lot of guys who have invested time and money to develop themselves, to develop their own mind, their own mindset. When you make that kind of investment, one of the things that actually happens is you see your own intelligence rise. And I think I've said this in other videos. One of the things that diminishes intelligence is trauma, childhood trauma. Things that happen could be emotional, could be sexual, could be physical, but abuse, trauma will diminish your ability to recognize patterns. And eventually that just makes you the guy who's just feeling your way around. So like you're saying, Manny, they end up with no purpose. They're just living through life and like a leaf in a stream, and it just goes with the current. And a lot of and they may develop skills to be a good player, but that's about it. And the high quality woman, well, you know, the woman who's really wife material, if she's intelligent, she's going to figure out this guy is just a player and he's just flowing with the current of the stream like a leaf. She's going to get out of that. A high intelligent woman will generally, they avoid that guy who's abusive, even if he does have a purpose. Now, if she's been abused as a child, she may have a challenge if she hasn't done the work. But see, doing the work is what I'm really getting at, is that the self-improvement, it's alchemy, right? So one of the things the alchemist of the medieval days, an alchemist is said to be able to transform lead into gold. And how did they do that? They had to have a flame that was white hot, and it was so hot, and they had this white substance that they would apply onto the lead. And literally what the alchemist did is burned off all the lead properties. And when they burned off all the lead properties, what was left was the essence of the metal, which is gold. A lot of people did this in the medieval days, right? Alchemy was a big thing. Before even it was in Europe, it was in the Middle East. So if you understand alchemy is transforming lead into gold, then when I talk about self-improvement and personal development, I'm actually speaking about it in the context of alchemy, of transforming your own self from lead into gold, right? And we all have some lead on us that blinds us, right? It creates blind spots. It impedes our ability to see patterns, and we end up in jobs, relationships, friendships, arguments with people, and it even makes it hard for us to fully understand and comprehend what's going on around us, because society puts all this lead on you. Like I said, you know, you're born, you grow up, you go to school, you get married, you have children, and you die, and that's what society has put on us. And a lot of people, that's killing a lot of guys, especially if they go through an ugly divorce. It's like, what's left? So making an investment in yourself and your own personal development and burning off, shedding, like they say, like a snake. But I really like alchemy because if you burn off the lead, and I'm saying everyone, just like lead, and the alchemists had to understand, they had to have the competency, the training, the development, and they didn't do this overnight. But you had to have that kind of commitment to become an alchemist. And there are people who can actually support men and women to go through that kind of training and shed the lead. Didn't mean to rhyme, but shed the lead so that's what's left is the gold and a power that you didn't even know that you had. Everyone has their own superpower, intelligence. I mean, you just want to hope it's more than just a pretty face and a nice body, because that's a depreciating asset. If it's just your looks, over time, there'll be nothing left. So personal development, it's a huge one. And as you shed the lead, things start to look a lot clearer for you in life. You start to recognize patterns. You start to see, as men, you start to see women for who they really are. So you don't marry her and then say she changed on me. You recognize that pattern even before she presented it. And the gold that you have inside is what allows you to understand what questions to ask to start looking at what's behind her lid. Now, attempting to be some guy who's going to save every woman, that's a hell of a job to have. And that's a hell of a purpose to have, right? But if you're looking for more than that in an intimate relationship, I mean, if you want to be a guy who goes out and does workshops just for women, that's one thing. But if you're going to get involved in every woman and want to go through the roller coaster ride with her and the dysfunction, that comes with a price. So yes, purpose. If I gave you a punchline on purpose, you don't find purpose, and purpose doesn't find you. The punchline is you invent, you create your purpose. And when you shed that lead, it makes it a lot easier to be able to, create that purpose, because you start to recognize many of those patterns and the opportunities and the things that will derail you, whether it's the things that come from you or the people around you. So yes, if you'd like to see the show that I did yesterday, it's on Patreon. I think you'll find it extremely valuable, because we were burning off the lead in that conversation. And there were a few guys. I did it in my podcast, and I did it live on YouTube at the same time. So the entire show is on Patreon, and the layers of lead that were peeled off were revealing all by themselves when you saw how people dealt with the layers that they started to discover or uncover. So I thank everyone for watching this. Like it, share, especially you want to share this with the guys who are high quality, high ambition, some of those nerds, and many of those nerds and geeks, and the women who want to attract them. Because I think a lot of women don't understand what it really takes what's really in the mind of a high quality guy and what you need to be able to present and the things that you do that turn you off. So I want to say thank you to everyone. I'm going to bring this to a close, and I look forward to you joining me in my Straight Talk talk shows on Sundays at 7, and I'll be back with some more videos. Hey, thank you, Manny. Thank you. And have a good evening, everyone. Take care.